Okay, welcome everybody to the third edition in the meantime of my little developer interview series here. And welcome Christian Posta. He's with me on the call today. Hello. How
Good
are you?
morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
It's
Good
actually
afternoon.
late afternoon here, so this is going to be a fancy thing to do all over the world.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself, please. Who are you? What are you doing? And why are you up that early?
Yeah. So it's 5:30. 5:40. My name is Christian Posta. I work for Red Hat. I'm a middle or a what am I? Principal middleware solutions architect. I work in the SME POC group, and I work on open source. I work on integration, and my favorite projects right now are probably fabric8 and I guess messaging applications, ActiveMQ, that kind of stuff. And I'm a
Okay.
I'm a committer on a couple of those projects at Apache, and this kind of stuff is really my passion. I'm really interested in hacking and learning and teaching and all that stuff.
Okay. When did you get started with that? That's obviously all kind of integration technology. So I've been more recently talking to Klaus Ibsen, and he has quite a road trip in
Yeah.
terms of 7 years of heavily integration technologies. When
Yeah.
when was the time you've been hit by the bus?
I've been doing. I haven't been doing open source for nearly as long as Klaus. Um, I think I got started doing, I didn't even know it was integration, but my career started at Intel actually, and I was going there I wanted to do embedded systems stuff, I thought. And, and we had this one project to get started, and we were working with an outside vendor, and we were exchanging data somehow. I think it was XML over email actually, because they didn't want to go through all of the paperwork to open up firewall ports and all this stuff. So we just said, oh, let's just do it over email, and they'll send XML messages to us, and we'll parse them and we'll send them back over email. Don't have to tell anybody anything. um, but I thought the whole um, I think at that point I was just, oh, we can exchange data that way, we can do it that way. I thought we had to do all these fancy other things, uh, and then I left Intel to go work at the Department of Energy here in Phoenix, and we were doing some of the same stuff, exchanging data and dealing with problems about, maybe the data doesn't get there, or it's in the wrong format, or um, various nasty integration challenges. And I don't know, I'm sick like that. Maybe it seemed really interesting, and I was always looking for better ways to do these types of integrations. We had open source Oracle type solutions that always just felt nasty. But we I stumbled onto Spring integration, which is actually a different project. Uh, it's a competitor maybe, or an alternative. And it plays in the same space as Apache Camel. And I thought, oh, this EIP, this pattern book, and the way that they implemented it, it was pretty nice. So that's how I got started. Actually, was playing around um, and contributing a little bit to the Spring integration project. And I would write blogs about it, um, and and I think what happened was someone at FuseSource saw my blog and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to work with us?" And at the time, we were having our first child. She's 2.5 now, and I said, "No, I don't know if I can travel and do all that. I was going to work as a consultant." But I was really interested in, oh, Camel. I've heard good things about it. It's a little bit competitor to Spring Integration, but I should be able to pick it up really quickly. ActiveMQ, I would rather use that than WebLogic JMS, and so on and so forth. Long story short, I joined FuseSource. I really got uh, deep into the code in some of these projects, and um, it's kept me interested. I'm still really interested working with Klaus and James Strachan and Hiram Chirino and Rob Davies and a number of other people is really a good way to stay humble and and continue to want to learn and get better and stay interested. So that's where I am right now.
What was the project you did your last commit on?
Well, also I'm a committer on ActiveMQ and Camel. Um, I guess one of the how about how I got started with ActiveMQ because that was interesting. I actually started with there was a sub project of ActiveMQ called Apache Apollo, which was where Hiram and a couple of guys were proving out some new ways of writing a message broker. Um, and when I first got started at FuseSource, I thought, okay, I want to be a committer on ActiveMQ, but how do I go about doing that? And I thought, oh, ActiveMQ, that's so popular, everybody's going to try to be a committer on that. Let me look at this Apollo stuff. I had no idea about reactive programming and event-driven programming, and it was written in Scala. So I figured, it's got a high barrier to entry, so let's see if I can play with that. So I put some time into it, figured it out, tried to contribute where I could, but then I got thrown onto an engagement where it was ActiveMQ, like ActiveMQ5, not Apollo, and the dude that I was working with, he knew ActiveMQ inside and out, knew it way better than I did, and I was way in over my head at that. I was only a couple months into the job anyway, and I really felt like I got my ass kicked. I mean, I did a really good, a decent enough job. They said, they didn't send me away or something in handcuffs, but I decided, all right, well now I'm going to focus on ActiveMQ5 because I can't go into a client and be embarrassed like that. So then I started digging deeper into ActiveMQ5 and got too deep into there, I think.
Okay. If I would if I would ask you for the most interesting tooling to look at these days when it comes to integration, what would be your answer? It's obviously not ActiveMQ and not Camel. Both have been around since ages. What's the innovator's pick, and what solution to which kind of problems is it?
The whole DevOps hype is pretty interesting. I think so. DevOps isn't a tool or a group or a job role or anything like that, but it's more of a philosophy, and it's a philosophy or a culture. And the way that you get teams to work together um, needs. I mean, you end up having tools that'll help streamline and help cultivate the way groups work together. And I think some of those interesting tools, in my point of view, especially for middleware, where we're playing heavily, I think Docker and fabric8 and OpenShift and some of these other cloud technologies are really cool, and they also they bring a lot of power um, to being able to automate and version your middleware and audit it and really build a foundation for the culture that would sit on top of it to help bring technology solutions, middleware solutions, integration solutions to quote unquote market or to realization, to production a lot faster. And I think that's that thinking isn't new, but the hype curve that it's on right now and the pieces that are coming together to support it, that part is new, and there's innovation there, and that actually makes middleware a little more exciting because I think in my opinion there was kind of a lull. Nobody really wanted to get into middleware you get out of college and you hack on code to go work at startups. But I think there's a lot of innovation and excitement now in the middleware world because of tools like fabric8 and Docker and OpenShift.
Okay. You told me a secret, didn't you? I mean, you told me that you are working on a book. What is it
Yeah.
about?
The book is it's about fabric8. It's the book should be published by Manning maybe next April, I think is where we're shooting. I'm only two chapters in now, so still crossing my fingers that it becomes a reality. But it's about fabric8, um, and I'm hoping to give a full picture because fabric8 it's a complex piece of software. It does a lot of different things, and every day it's changing. And to add more things, new capabilities, and its reach from just being a management of an ESB to being management of an entire platform and deployment, regardless of whether you're in the cloud or on premise, and regardless of container technology and all this other stuff is quite broad. So what I hope to do in the book is number one, introduce people to it in a gentle way so that you're not overwhelmed. And number two, shine a light on the important pieces and how those fit into a DevOps culture um, for deploying JVM based middleware.
Okay.
Um,
Want to have an early morning challenge? I have one for you.
sure,
You can
perfect.
have 2 to 5 minutes and just try to show a little bit, like a mini demo, what fabric8 really is. I mean, the background is pretty easy. I've been looking at it too myself, and
Yeah,
I've been pretty pleasantly surprised by the very easy to read website. And I
yeah.
thought, yeah, let's get started. And the more sentences I started to read, the clearer it became that it's not something that is just easy to understand because of all its, I mean, how many technologies are in there? 10 to 15? And it's really, I
Yeah.
mean, I haven't seen something like that before. It's a real complex thing. So is that doable? Can you show something that tries to explain what fabric8 really is?
Let's
Let me
try.
give you the screen. There you go.
Let's try it. Let me switch over to a. Okay. Let me share my screen. Share screen.
Oh, that works.
I happen to be right in the middle of trying to do something like that, so
Surprise!
hopefully it works. Do you guys see a terminal screen?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So I am. This is probably one of the latest builds off of the master. It's kind of been in flux actually. The master's been kind of trashed for last week or two, but I think this one's working. So let's try. So let me just start it up uh, and see what kind of state I left it in before I started this. So fabric8 is at its core, I guess, you can think of it as a software configuration management tool. So we can start with that. It does a lot of other things, but um, we can build off of this configuration management piece. Let me show you. So where's the mouse? And by software configuration management, I mean a tool like maybe Puppet or Chef for provisioning machines and operating systems. Um, but this is more this is it's like that has a lot of the same ideas. It builds on top of it, but it's focused on middleware,
Okay,
um,
that screen looks familiar. So there's another
middleware deployments.
technology in there, Hot.io.
Yeah. Yeah, Hot.io is an awesome project that you can use actually on your own. It's not tied in any way to Fabricate, but Fabricate uses it and leverages it and builds it up the way that if you wanted to use it in your own projects, it's kind of a model for doing that, for adding plugins and adding visualizations and extending it. Basically, Fabricate shows how to do that because it does it. Um, but Hot.io is a web console, basically. It's a unification of web consoles, really, where you don't have sprawling, every technology has its own web console, and each web console's user experience is varyingly kind of crappy sometimes, or good, or whatever. But Hot.io tries to unify those, and building plugins for Hot.io is fairly easy. And all of these pieces, there's Camel, there's ActiveMQ, Fabric has its own plugin, Git, and this little wiki. So all of these are built on plugins, but when you bring it Hot.io up and point it at a JVM, it introspects the JVM and looks at what technology is in that JVM and then displays the plugins that you need. So it
And
keeps it simple,
in this
uniform,
case,
and
it
extendable.
automatically discovered the fabric.
Yes, exactly. It automatically discovered Fabric. Some of these, the wiki one is in there by default, and the dashboard one's by default. But what it really does is it looks at the JMX tree and identifies which beans are familiar to it, and then enables those plugins for it.
Okay.
And I think I saw Klaus talk before me, or he interviewed before me,
Yeah.
and he may have mentioned some stuff on Hot.io and Jalokia, so definitely go see his
He
interview
was
also.
he was mostly burning about all the possibilities, and he showed the Camel plugin or
Yeah,
extension quite briefly. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm still amazed. I mean, it's Hot.io is around every new and upcoming project. So that's
yeah.
a good thing. I mean, unification and user
Mhm.
experience should be, at least my opinion,
That's
should
the
be
thing, the user
comparable,
experience.
yeah, of
Yeah,
all products so and projects. That makes sense.
yeah. User experience is a big deal, and the startups, the successful ones at least, they tend to get it right. But we in middleware, we tend to not even care about that. But it's important.
Yeah, I'm since 14 years in the business, so I have an
Yeah,
idea where you're talking.
yeah. Okay, so I clicked on runtime, and this runtime tab will actually give us a list of all of the containers that we are in charge of managing and provisioning software to. So that's the software configuration piece. This is our collection of servers that we are provisioning. These are configuring, really.
Okay.
Um, Right now, we only have two, and we have this one called Polar Bear because I'm working on the example for my book. But Polar Bear is each one of these quote unquote containers is basically a JVM.
A
So
physical machine or a JVM
no,
instance?
a JVM.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's the common underlying definition for container in this context. Otherwise, container means everything and nothing. I mean, there's a lot of different uh, definitions for container, but a JVM. This is a independent JVM. It can be local, so it can be running locally on my box. It can be remote over SSH, for example.
Hmm.
It can be remote over uh, the JClouds plugin and spin up a real VM on a infrastructure as a service provider and create a JVM on top of that.
Like
There's
AWS and
like
Azure.
AWS, Rackspace, OpenStack,
Okay.
something like that.
Hmm.
Um, what else? There's also plugins for OpenShift, so for our paths. So you can have a JVM running on an OpenShift gear. There's also a plugin for Docker. So there's a multitude of different ways to run a JVM, but the underlying the bottom line is for what a container is. It's just a JVM. And what we can do is create new JVMs containers in fabric8 parlance. In this, by default, out of the box, you have child or SSH options.
Which is kind of remote or local.
Right, right. But still separate JVMs. Because I know I've done demos before, and I didn't explain that part clearly enough, and the customer thought, oh, well, you're just spinning up a couple threads in the existing JVM, and that's not very impressive. But no, it's completely separate JVM, and you're able to remotely manage it, and configure it, and basically apply a set of declarative instructions to the JVM, and then the JVM goes and figures out how to do it. So you're not writing. So I guess one of the alternatives would be you get your VI out and your Bash scripting book out, and you figure out how to cobble together logging into a Tomcat or a EAP or something, and do, okay, copy this over here, change the permissions for this over here, and then apply this over here to this directory, and then start the server, and then deploy the application, do all that stuff. So you don't deal with directly. You say, I want this application A, I want this configuration file, these are the couple of the dependencies, and then you basically hand it to the application server or the container, the JVM, and say, okay, now you figure out how to make all that work. You figure out what the permissions need to be, what folders it needs to go into, how to start yourself, so you're not bespoke configuration, bespoke scripting for very specific JVM technologies.
What you just described is that kind of profile?
Profile, yeah, exactly.
The common configuration information, and that is basically, as of today, as far as I understood, a Maven-based project?
No, so profiles are completely independent from Maven.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what build technology or build management technology you're going to use. So if we click over here, let's look at, here are a handful of the profiles that will come out of the box, but we can look at, I don't know, it's one of the REST. Where's this REST one? This is the one. If I click on this, the details, I'll be taken to this profiles page, and really off to the left-hand side here, these are the parts that make up the profile. There's the important one is this one, is this io.fabric8.agent.properties. So if I click on this, it's probably not too much stuff in here, but really all it is a key value text file. The keys have significance, and you can control what the rest of the profile looks like with these keys, but that's all it is. It's just it's just a text file. So there's nothing tied to Maven per se. There is a Maven plugin to help automate generating these profiles, so you don't have to do it by hand. But you could also do it from Hot.io. There's a Hot.io UI for helping to generate this stuff. But yeah, it's not tied to any specific technology.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess here's an example of, I think this exposes a REST endpoint, and I can show you real quickly how to deploy it. So one cool thing is a profile describes what an application or what the container looks like. But you can also specify other ancillary files like a README file, and in this README file, you can give instructions and commentary, what to watch out for, how to install it, how to start it up, let's see, in this case, what URL to hit after you've installed it, and so forth. So along with your description of what you're going to deploy, you can actually give some more notation, some more description about it. And then you can just package this up into a profile, and let's say you're in your continuous delivery phase, or continuous delivery pipeline, and you've tested out your applications, you've built everything, you've built your profile, now you put your throw your profile into an artifact repository somewhere like Maven, for example, and then from there on, the dev and QA and prod environments have pull down that profile and then can install and provision machines based on what you developed and tested and shown that it works.
That's basically what you meant with not only a tool to achieve things and results, but also something documentary,
Yeah,
fitting into the overall process and
yeah,
supporting all people involved with that fancy buzzword
yeah,
DevOpsy things, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So that's why fabricate, when you first look at it, you're like, holy crap, this is too much. It does a lot of stuff. But if you look at it in terms of, all right, there's pieces for developers, there's pieces for the operations team, there's pieces to help streamline you get from development to production, and all of the little auditable, repeatable, all those steps that any good development shop needs to have. It's all in there, but you can start slowly with, okay, this is what I need for development. And then, okay, now what am I going to do with this code that I developed? Well, now I need to deploy it. Okay, now, so Fabricate has a lot of stuff for helping you to deploy and so forth. So I think that's going to be a big challenge in my book, is how do I explain that in nice, easy pieces, nice, easy steps, and help build the reader into being able to grasp the rest of the potential that Fabricate has.
Seriously, I can't wait for the book. I mean,
Me neither.
it's probably more like an onion approach, right? Peeling
Yeah,
through.
exactly. Exactly. So okay, so let's take this REST profile. I'll come back here. There's shortcuts and everything all over the place, but let's go down the main path. If I click on create, I can create a new container, a new JVM. This is going to be our sample REST container. Let's just create it and start it. We're not going to apply any profiles or anything yet. We just create and start this container, and assuming this snapshot build isn't going to fall in on itself, what we should see is it'll create the new JVM. It'll install this little agent that sits inside the JVM. It's a fairly small piece of code that connects back up to Fabricate and listens for changes, listens for profiles, really. So when you apply a profile to a container, the container is actually listening for these changes, and when it sees, oh, I got a new profile assigned to me, okay, then let me read this profile, let me go through each one of those lines that we saw. Okay, this is my parent, this is the bundles that I need to, or the modules that I need to deploy, this is the configuration that goes along with it, and so forth. So then it starts the provisioning process, and it provisions itself, which would be different for different containers, different JVM technologies. So there's OSGI, there's an agent that will sit in your OSGI, so for example, Apache Carafe container. There's an agent that can sit inside of a Tomcat container, and EAP, and so forth. So what it would do is help provision itself.
Okay.
So we've created this sample REST container. If we click on it, there are no profiles, and looks like some of the other stuff is not showing up either. But I can click add. So now we have a running JVM. There's nothing in it. And let's see, can I do this? Show. I'm not pretending, but there's actually two Carafe JVMs now. not just the one.
Okay.
And what I want to do is add REST quick start, which would be this one. So I'm going to add that profile to the container, and we should see up in this left-hand corner, we should see actually more stuff, but oh, here it is.
Ah.
We can see that the container agent saw the profile and said, okay, I need the bundle that makes up the REST implementation. We need there's other dependencies, a couple of other features that go along with it. Let's look at it. The REST profile right here. So okay, so we have Swagger needs to go along with it. CXF JAX-RS needs to go along with it, and we deploy our one bundle or module to our container.
And the complete wiki page is refactored or just gathered from the profile information, so nobody had to actually write that, right?
Well, this would be an example maybe from your README file that like for example, if you're using Maven and you have a README file to go along with your project, this would be automatically pulled in. The README file would be automatically pulled in.
Okay.
And if you write it in Markdown, then it'll just be displayed nicely like this. And we could have followed these steps here because, so for example, all the things that I've done so far can be done from the command line. And that's another important piece for operations teams, because when they see hot IO, they like it, but what they really are going to end up doing is either from the command line or even scripting this stuff, scripting all these steps, and all of this stuff can be scripted also.
Okay.
So I think this is the URL that we want to hit if everything is up and running, but let's verify that. Okay, so we said fabric8 was a software configuration management tool, and it is. We just specified our configuration, deployed it, and it provisioned itself. But once fabric8 knows what profiles are applied to which containers, and it has the ability to introspect the JVMs and figure out what technology is in each one of those containers, you can start to build up a powerful runtime registry that can be used by clients to look up, for example, this REST service. Or if you deploy ActiveMQ, you can look up which brokers are part of a master-slave configuration. So let's look here. If we click on the APIs tab, if we come up here, we see profiles, MQ, and APIs. If we click on that tab, of course, it's a snapshot build. So, okay, we can see which RESTful or SOAP-based web services are deployed on any of our containers or group of containers.
Like in the super Uber number of all interfaces deployed?
So, yeah, exactly. So if you have, for any interface or any service, contract type service that you deploy, fabric8 will auto-detect that and help build up the registry here that lists out all of and then you can filter, if it's a long list, you can filter it. And I think as we start getting more usage out of this particular piece, we'll find better ways of grouping services and being able to discover them. But nevertheless, at runtime, you can plug into this registry and discover where. So this is the CRM service we just deployed, where those services are. So you don't have to hard code the port and host location, and those host and port locations can change dynamically in, for example, in OpenShift, where you don't really have much control over where they get deployed. And so, but fabric8 knows. So that's I think that's the important piece. Chef and Puppet do all these great things with provisioning machines and operating systems and patches and all that. fabric8 does a really good job of provisioning JVM middleware and building insight out of what it knows it has deployed.
Which is a lot more than all those other tools ever would
Ex
know, because they focus on infrastructure and fabric8
exactly.
focuses on middleware parts, right?
Exactly. And then once Fabricate knows that, hey, there's camel deployed in this container over there, well, now you can build a camel plugin that shows a lot of visualizations, debugging and going through the route and all that stuff. Or you've deployed ActiveMQ over here. Okay, well, so now we can build a lot of tooling around ActiveMQ or whatever the broker is. I think I just saw someone contribute a plugin for or enhancement to Fabricate for Mule. So if you have Mule running in a container over here, then you can do the same thing. So it's just JVM technology. It's extensible, and the information insight you're able to glean from the Fabricate platform allows you to make better tooling and get better insight to what's running in your quote unquote fabric or in your middleware deployments.
Quite an intelligent piece of software.
Right. So here's our service. We see that it's deployed. If I widen this a bit, we can click on the WADL and get a listing of what are the different endpoints. Let's see, there's a get right here. So I don't know if
Whoa,
it's
it's even
actually
small test UI.
there. And then it does work. So, but I was going to go to a REST client, but I don't need to, I guess. Um, yeah, it builds up this listing of endpoints, and you can annotate your. So this was built up. This example actually uses JAX-RS under the covers, but so you can use JAX-RS annotations to help populate these values, and then I believe you can even use the Swagger annotations to help populate them even deeper, because it uses Swagger.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I just typed in 123 and hit try it out, and here's our response. Simple. But now I can take this REST profile and deploy it to 100 containers and have a farm or JVMs and have a farm of these services, and I can use Fabricate to auto discover where those are, so that they can kind of go and move from machine to machine, fail, and all that kind of stuff without the client having to know any of those details.
What would be your preferred way to start with fabric8? I mean, if I'm a user, I obviously go to the fabric8.io website.
Mm-hmm.
There's all the quick starts in there, a bunch of documentation.
Mm-hmm.
What else is there?
I would check out. There's a handful of videos that I've done, Klaus has done, James has done, that follow step. I think if I come here to articles, videos, and here are some of the ones from that we posted onto Vimeo. There's got a handful of videos to actually 10-minute chunks maybe, and to help you get started and show you how, step by step exactly what to do and how to get it to work. Um, that would be my first where I start.
Oh,
Um,
perfect. So if you remember your blog URL, then this would be a good point to pitch that a bit.
oh, sure,
So,
yeah. So I like learning about technology, but I also like explaining and helping other people learn it also. Um, and so I write a lot about Hot.io, about Fabricate, about Camel, about ActiveMQ, um, and and yeah, so go check out my blog, christianpost.com/blog, and I'm also tweet about interesting. I even logged in here. Tweet about interesting things on Twitter, and all those slides and stuff and blog posts that I do and public engagements that I do, I tweet about and direct people from here. So yeah, hopefully I think I rambled on a lot also.
that made a lot of sense. Thank you a lot. I mean, it's interesting piece of technology down there. So the complexity comes from all the pieces and probably also from a little bit of missing documentation. But well, that's
Sure.
how open source projects typically go. So
Yeah,
functionality first. I hope that this little tiny interview helped a bit to get the word out about this amazing piece of software.
yeah, me too.
Thanks a lot for your early time. So now it's up to you to either grab a coffee or go back to bed. Probably choose the bed by now, or at least a beer or whatever. But
Oh, a beer would be great.
yeah, it's almost 4 here. Yeah, a beer club is upcoming. Christian, thanks a lot for your time. Was a pleasure to have you. So hope we can talk again sometime in the future.
I appreciate it, Marcus. Thank you so much. And I look forward to sharing a beer with you sometime when we meet. And I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thanks. You too. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye.